children in my life to grow up in is a world where not just black lesbians have it good, but where white gay men have it good, where Native Americans have it good, where Asian fat people have it good. You know, that the world that I want to live in, which sounds really corny sometimes, but it's really what I believe in, is not a world where black lesbians are in charge. I want a few black lesbians in charge.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed, that all men are created equal. I have a dream.
There's another debate in our society that is just as politically charged and which directly affects the lesbian and gay community. It can be summed up in 2 words: family values. But what is a family? As we approach the next millennium, the definition seems to be changing. In a series of segments throughout our program, we'll take a look at how several lesbian and gay parents are reinterpreting the structure of the traditional family while upholding its most essential values.
I always wanted kids, forever, and being gay, I wasn't quite sure how I would wind up doing that. And then Ann came along, and it sort of happened. It was great.
And for us to have set this up so that we were equal parents in the same house, co-parenting on a regular day-to-day basis, people were a little freaked out.
But Ann and I were both single at the time. I'm still single, but Ann, of course, now is with Joyce, and she's with all of us, actually.
I think for us it was an important joint decision. We've been together 15 years at the time, and I think that we as a couple were ready for that decision at that point.
The kids in the gay and lesbian community are very planned for, especially these new kinds of families where the parents are out and then decide to create a family. These are very planned for. We read everything under the sun, the psychological literature on gay parenting. We read Dr. Spock, you know, you name it, we read it.
People don't ever expect that a white parent's can have a black child or vice versa.
Rescuing an African-American child was very important and critical to me.
Kids know that Justin and Zachary have 2 dads. We deliberately chose to father names like Daddy and Poppy for that specific reason. We're both fathers.
I have been considering parenting, I guess in my early 30s, that's when I started, because at that point I had already taken care of my choices as a career. And having Jacques in my life, helping me raise them, it's very important to have solid foundation and good examples of children to be around.
We're a living example that
Exactly.
lesbians can raise a family, and quite well.
When people challenge our rights as lesbian and gay people to have children on whatever basis, an emotional basis, sometimes people couch it in very compassionate ways and say, but the children. I don't think anyone would ever challenge a person of color and would ever question their right to have children in spite of the fact that it's likely that their children will be surrounded by bigoted people.
In having children, certainly we are teaching them, as my parents taught me about discrimination, we are teaching them, giving them the tools to handle what is homophobia and what is racism.
This house is going to be the kind of house and has the kind of family value of speaking your mind and letting your parents know how you feel, and your parents helping you in return deal with those feelings.
And they respect who we are, and we respect who they are. And, you know, that's a part of what parenting has done for me, too, showing, you know, you must respect the children, and then they learn to respect who you are as well.
In the last episode of In the Life, we spoke with playwright Terrence McNally about his off-Broadway hit, Love, Valor, Compassion. His play, acclaimed by critics as one of the best of the season, has since moved to Broadway.
Off-Broadway, however, still remains host to numerous gay and lesbian characters.
Charles Busch is enjoying an open run at the West Side Theater with his new comedy, You Should Be So Lucky.
Well, You Should Be So Lucky is kind of a throwback to a 1930s screwball comedy, but contemporary.
I met someone last night, and he's coming over in a few hours.
You met your prince?
I wouldn't say that. He's a publicist. He's really quite young, but he's worked with everyone from Lady Kazan to serial killers.
And I play a rather kooky Greenwich Village electrologist, and who becomes the protege to this very wealthy old widower who wills him $10 million, and his family contests the will, and all hell breaks loose.
Charles, is it electrologist or electrolyst?
Oh, I always thought it was electrolyst, but then a gal I know who had her mustache taken off and should know said it was electrologist, so I think she knows better.
Busch, who usually performs in drag, hung up his gowns to play a trouser role.
Well, I think it's always good to go against the tide, and now just about everybody and their father is getting into drag. I mean, it's an epidemic.
Perhaps no one, though, does it as well as Charles.
To get where I am, I've had to crawl my way up from the gutter.
I think we're probably the only show that has in our program an electrologist on staff.
However far lesbians and gays in this country have come along the road to equal rights, it's important to remember that in other countries, life for homosexuals is far more repressive. But even so, things are changing. Last December, a group of lesbian and gay activists from the United States traveled to Cuba. There they met with artists and activists who are trying to start a gay and lesbian alliance inside that country. Miguel Arenas interviewed several of them for In the Life.
Catherine, you're right. Cuba is a repressive society, especially towards gays and lesbians, who have been discriminated against, harassed, imprisoned, even tortured and exiled. We went there to try to understand the situation a little bit better. We heard some horror stories, but we also heard some encouraging news.
I think that in the 70s, there were other more important things to think about. It was the beginning of a revolution, and everything was focused on that.
Now there is something quite novel. We are trying to forge ahead with a kind of gay and lesbian alliance here in Cuba.
We want a space where we can meet, talk, analyze our issues, and even get to know people.
It's not to tolerate us or accept us, but to respect us as we respect them. It's to win that space that we are not begging for, but that we deserve. We have a right to, because we are born here, we are from here, so we deserve a space.
I am living the problem of homosexuality in Havana in the latter part of the 20th century, in a special period, on an island divided, blockaded, and I don't mind saying so. And then you realize, with this enormous amount of weight on top of the weight of being homosexual, it still continues to be a burden, an onerous burden, and I don't know when it will end.
If it's difficult to be a gay man, it's much more difficult to be a lesbian.
We still have a long way to go, but in 1994, there is an opening for gays and lesbians, especially in the city of Havana, since it is the capital of the Republic.
It's opened up a little bit because you are here, and that's given a certain... It's opened up a little bit because they know you are a group of foreigners and that you are helping us, and there's a bit of tolerance. I think that, no, it's not very open, because I have been to the movies a lot, alone, and after the movie I sit on the corner and they ask for my papers. In 10 meters they ask for my papers 3 times, for no reason.
We have to assert ourselves. Already, a lot of people in Cuba are asserting themselves. Today, the gays and lesbians you see in the streets of Cuba, their numbers are more than in 1991 or 92.
One sign of more relaxed attitudes towards homosexuality in Cuba was the release in 1993 of the film Fresa y Chocolate, Strawberry and Chocolate. It focuses on a friendship between a gay man and a Communist Party member.
Coño, Diego, ¿por qué tú eres así? ¿Así cómo? ¿Tú no tienes familia?
Voy a haber salido de la nada.
Sí, pero seguro que no quieren saber de ti.
¿Quién dijo? Soy el niño lindo de mi mamá.
Pero no tienes papá. No se ocupó de ti. Abandonó la familia cuando tú eras chiquito.
Papá es un santo.
Pero entonces, ¿qué fue lo que te pasó? ¿Por qué tú eres...?
Maricón. Porque sí. Mi familia lo sabe.
Ellos tienen la culpa.
No, ¿quién dijo? ¿Por qué?
Sí. Te hubieran llevado al médico cuando chiquito. Eso es un problema endocrino.
Por favor, David. ¿Qué teoría es esa? Parece mentira en un muchacho universitario. ¿A ti te gustan las mujeres? A mí me gustan los hombres. Eso es perfectamente normal. Además, ocurre desde que el mundo es mundo. Y no impide que yo sea una persona decente ni tan patriota como tú.
Sí, pero tú no eres revolucionario.
¿Quién te dijo a ti que yo no soy revolucionario?
3 meses en cartelera. 3 months on the marquees. The lines were enormous.
The theater was packed for every showing. Some were crying, others were clapping, and others laughing.
Even if they go to make fun of the fag, even if they go to criticize or whatever, at least they see and hear all this information about homosexuals. The issue at least is discussed and gets into their heads, and this helps.
I think that, yes, that very soon Cuba may have a gay and lesbian association, openly, like there is in the United States.
Our group from the U.S. was able to facilitate meetings between government officials and gay and lesbian activists for probably the first time to talk about working together on gay rights issues.
The idea terrifies them from the get-go, because they always say that it's not the time, that they think it's not the right time. Subconsciously, they're convinced that homosexuality is perhaps a sign or a symbol of a possible counter-revolutionary movement. That is an enormous error.
De un posible movimiento contrarrevolucionario, cosa que es un error enorme.
All of the pressures that we have, economic pressures, we lack so much, materially, spiritually, intellectually. So on top of this, if I'm going to make myself crazy, I don't think I would make it. It seems that even though there are all these difficulties, if I can grow and be who I am, value myself as a woman, as a black person, as a lesbian, as whatever, then I think that to a great extent it will help me to overcome all the limitations that we face.
The definition of family has changed in this country. And I think that's important that it has changed.
My family was great. All of them were great until Joyce came. And then we didn't look so traditional and so straight anymore.
Especially having 2 men walking down the street pushing an infant, you know, a couple days old, going into the drugstore. Suddenly a little old lady runs up to you and says, well, where's the mother? You know, they're just upset not seeing a female role model, you know, handling this kid. You know, you're going to drop them. They're not dressed warmly enough. You get all this stuff.
Or I find myself in positions of people assuming that I have a wife at home because I'm a man with children. And sometimes that means, you know, being in a store and someone saying, where's your wife? And me winding up saying, well, I don't quite have a wife.
Well, they're both at home.
They're both at home.
In many respects, we are the Leave It to Beaver family of the 90s.
It's not an issue for our children, it's more of an issue for the society in general.
After our children were born, we lived in D.C. at the time, and we went through the process of second-parent adoptions.
If a lesbian or gay couple's raising a child together, the problem is only one of them is a legally recognized parent, if one is a biological or had been an adoptive parent. The question for us as lawyers is how do we change that so that both of them can be recognized as legal parents. And second parent adoption has been the strategy we've used.
But that's an expensive process. That's a process which depends where you live, what your chances are for success. And the majority of gay and lesbian parents don't have those protections.
We've drawn up as many papers as we could on our own with a lawyer to